Hello, welcome to another video. My name is Michael, and today I'm going to be doing a cosplay Q&A video answering your questions that you asked me on Instagram. So this was going to be part of our cosplay tidying up the cosplay sewing room video, but that video got a bit long, so we decided to make this just its own separate video, and so I'm going to be answering your questions that you posted on Instagram in this video today. So sorry for the kind of future jumping back and forth nature of this video, but I'm answering all your questions, so enjoy the rest of the video. So Legend Toph Beifong asked, why do you love Doctor Strange so much? He's a wizard and he has really cool clothes, and that's pretty much it. Cosplay Annie says, how to know which kind of fabric is fitting for a piece of clothing. I avoid like 4-way stretch because they're just really hard to work with. Some people only like 4-way stretch because it's so forgiving, but I like things that have a lot of structure and are really consistent, so that's usually what I lean towards. So that's pretty much my only advice if it's not a more specific question to the kind of garment you're making. Cosplay Annie also asked tips for pattern beginners. Finally got a new machine and want to start some projects. So I always start projects, pretty much always, with a commercial pattern, so something that you get from a craft store, something like Simplicities or McCall's, and then adapt from there. You can definitely learn draping techniques, putting things on a dress form, and drawing lines and creating shapes. You can also pull stuff out of your closet and replicate patterns and shapes that way. Just lay it down on a piece of muslin or wrapping paper or whatever and start creating things. I usually go through 5 or 6 iterations of something before I'm happy with it, so accept that you're not going to get it on the first try if you're a self-taught person like I am. Nikki Zampa asks, what's the pattern you've used for the Agatha Harkness costume shawl? So that one I did drape myself. There wasn't really a pattern available for it, so I just started cutting out shapes. I took bed sheets. I showed you where I keep those down here, so I always have them accessible to me while I'm working. So I just took bed sheets and started pinning them to the shoulders of the dress form and then drawing out the shape that I wanted. It was a really big triangle. And then started just snipping, cutting away stuff, and seeing how it draped on the dress form, and that's how I created it. Then I copied that into the fashion fabric, and that's what you see on the finished project. Jack Pleasant says, how do you make your first patterns for your body shape? So again, having a dress form can be really helpful, a dress form that fits your proportions to the most part. If you don't have something like that, you can always just dress forms can be really expensive, so what I did was that my mannequins are actually like clothes mannequins. They're styrofoam clothes mannequins. I like styrofoam because you can pin to it really well. I like them that they're a lot cheaper. Formal, like professional dress forms are very expensive. They're definitely worth the investment, but I don't have one because I just don't have the money to get one right now. So dress mannequins, styrofoam dress mannequins are great. If you can't find one that fits your proportions, go smaller and then build it up. Build it up with cotton batting and just layer that until it meets your proportions, either the bust, the chest, the hips, whatever. You can layer it up. You can put a bra on the dress form so that it fits your chest proportions, and build it up rather than trying to get something that's too big and then make it smaller. That's a lot harder, so I would recommend adding up. You can also make a duct tape dress form. You can wrap yourself in plastic wrap and then wrap yourself in duct tape and then have someone help you and carefully cut it out and then seal it up the seam, then stuff that full, tight with like pillow stuffing, cotton pillow stuffing. And then you've got a dress form that you can work with that is exactly your size. That is one way to start, and it's always, I just think it's super helpful to have something that you can pin on. Otherwise, if you're making things for yourself, just constantly try it on, just constantly put it on your own body, look in a mirror and see how it looks. Disney Puff Lena asked, how do you store all your cosplays? I just showed you all of that. So they're in these plastic buckets or they're in our costume closet. Rachel in Darling asks, cool things you can do on a serger. I use a serger mostly to finish edges. So anything that's going to fray, I send it through the serger so that it's not going to fray. There's tons of other stuff you can do on a serger, and honestly, I haven't explored all of them because they involve changing the settings, and I just haven't put the effort into doing that yet. But going through your serger's manual and finding out the different kinds of things you can do, different kinds of finishes. You can use 3 threads, you can use 2 threads. There's lots of different different things you can do, but I honestly just use it to finish edges and it works really well for me. Unconceivable asks, what's next on the list? So I do have this fabric from Mood. When Hayley and I went to New York Comic-Con, we went to Mood Fabrics and got this really pretty twill that's got these teeny little sequins in it. So I really want to make a winter cape out of that. I want to build my cape collection and make some more capes, so that's definitely on the list. And I just need to finish Ragnarok Doctor Strange. I need to finish it. It's gonna be finished. It's gonna be okay. Stitches and Spells asked, do you have a method for planning and organizing your builds from concept to finish? So definitely collecting as many reference pictures as possible. I spend a long time like just conceptualizing a project before I start diving into it. Some people, you might just want to dive in and see what happens, but I like to spend a lot of time thinking about it. I think from top to bottom, what are all the pieces that have to be made and how am I going to make all of them? What's going to be required for every single piece? Doctor Strange, for example, it's like the under tunic, the arm cuffs, the over tunic, pants, boots, hands, hair, what is all going to have to be made to replicate each of those processes, and I just make a list of all of that stuff and start getting to work. Hayley Clemens asked, what is your very first cosplay? So that was a Kylo Ren and Rey cosplay that Hayley and I made together. I had no idea what I was doing. I made it out of burlap because I couldn't afford the basket weave fabric. It was way too expensive. It's still really expensive. And we had a blast doing it. It was a really fun project, and I'm really proud of that. It was like the first thing we did. It wasn't the first thing I sewed ever, but that is the first thing I would consider wearing like a cosplay, something that we took to a convention and wore out there. But we've been, like, Hayley's was in theater all through school. I was crafty and made costumes and things for like Harry Potter book releases. So we've been making stuff for a long time, but I say that was our first like official cosplay. Hayley Clemens also asked what first got you into cosplay. So Hayley is a really big Batman fan, and so when we were dating and we were in undergrad together, she got me into Batman. She got me really into reading the comics, and so we started collecting the comics, and the New 52 had just happened, so that was really great for us because we were just getting into comics and comic collecting and comic reading. So we started going to local shows that were selling comics, and then we started seeing people like, hey, there are people like in costume, this looks really cool. And then Star Wars was coming out, The Force Awakens was just coming out. We're like, what if we made like a Rey and Kylo Ren costume? And we did it, and it just blew up from there. It's been a blast. Loved every second of it. What are your Jedi Manda? Hi Jedi Manda. What are your top 3 favorite fabric resources? So Hayley purchases all of our fabric. Like 99% of our fabric is all Hayley. Hayley does all of that stuff, and I'm super grateful for her because she puts in the hours and hours and hours sometimes it takes to finding fabric. So my top 3 favorites are, one, there is this antique mall that is local to us. So we live in North Carolina, and North Carolina has a pretty big furniture making industry. So what that means is that a lot of upholstery fabric ends up in like secondhand sellers. Like people, there's like 13 yards of something that's left and the furniture company can't use anything with it, and so they sell the remnants to secondhand sellers. So antique malls. There's one local store in Charlotte where we live that has a really cool selection of fabric. So that is the Sleepy Poet, and there's an upholstery fabric store right next to that. So that's where I got a lot of my Doctor Strange fabric. So lots of those places around here. Sometimes upholstery fabric can be way too thick to use for apparel, but you go through it and you find kind of the thinner stuff that's going to work for your costume. So love finding it in person. Next, I do get stuff from Joann's. Joann's has a pretty good selection of fabric, so that's the only kind of fabric store in our area. All the other apparel fabric stores either never existed or have closed down. So as far as apparel fabric, I like to go in person. That's where I go. As far as online resources, justfabric.com is literally, I think that's what it's called. Mood Fabrics is great. Lots of different selection there, but they're a little expensive. And then we also, I know you said top 3, I'm probably listing more than that, but Etsy is a fantastic resource. You might not think of Etsy immediately as a fabric store, but they absolutely sell fabric on there. We got the color shifting fabric for our Aurora dress that I just finished. That was on Etsy. eBay is also good. People sell bolts of fabric on there, the remnants and other things that they don't need anymore. So eBay and Etsy are also fantastic resources. Lord Eldercraft asks, when making a collar, like on a cape or or cloak, how do you go about making it? So collars are my least favorite thing to pattern. I hate patterning collars. The arc of it, the curve that it has to go from the back to around the neck, it always messes me up. I always like have to go through 5 or 6 iterations before I'm happy with it. So I hate patterning collars. But I found most success in actually taking a collar that already exists, so a collar on a jacket, a collar on a shirt, and laying it out on muslin and copying that shape, that arc, that shape of it into muslin so that I can then use it as a pattern piece. That's what I did on my tuxedo cape that I made. I took an H&M tuxedo jacket that I have and I just laid it out flat, traced around the edges, added some seam allowance to that pattern, and then cut that out. And that worked pretty well for my tuxedo cape, so I was happy with that. So I would say just copy something that already exists. Pull out a collar from a pattern maybe that you already got from McCall's or Simplicity and just use that. You can always adapt and change it from there, but getting that arc just right can be tricky. So try that out and see if that helps. Historically Laced asks, what's your first step when recreating a screen accurate costume? So my first step is first excitement. I have to be excited about the project. I'm not just gonna make something because it's new or because it's relevant. I have to feel connection to the character first and then go see where it goes from there. My next step is going to be collecting reference images, tons and tons and tons of reference images, as many as possible, especially reference images from the costume in real life, like on display somewhere. They do that a lot in California. They put the costumes on display, or they'll be traveling like displays of the costume up and around. So as many reference images as possible that I can pull online. People are super generous and post them online, or ones that I can take myself. Like when we went to the Harry Potter studio tour, I took tons and tons of reference pictures of every single costume I could. Action figures sometimes, like for Marvel costumes, are also a really good resource because they'll show you the back. You can see the back of the costume. Even if it's an action figure form, that can still help you conceptualize how to put it together. Like Doctor Strange, he's always covered up by that cape, so I never know what the back of his tunic looks like. So those can be super helpful too. So as many reference images as possible of every single little piece that you can, and then go from there and see what you can do. Ryan McClay 90 asked, pockets, yeah, that's the whole question. So yeah, definitely adding pockets to costumes is super helpful. I like to add pockets even when maybe it's not necessarily in there, just so I can hold my phone or other things at conventions. So pockets are super helpful. So pockets are pretty much always the same shape. It's going to be kind of a thing that comes around and then under, and then has the seam allowance to the side. So if you're following my finger, that's pretty much the shape of a pocket pattern. You can pull a pocket pattern out of a commercially available pattern and just use that for everything. Just put it in the side seam, put it where you think pockets would be. You do it inside out in the seam allowance. So you lay the right, right sides together, sew along that line, flip it inside, and then sew along the seam allowance of the entire thing, and then you've got a pocket that you just got on the inside. That really wasn't very helpful with a lot of visuals, but hopefully you can follow, and maybe I could do another video on just adding pockets to cosplays. So thank you so much for joining today's video. I hope I answered some of your questions and get you off started in a good direction. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more content like this, you can put your questions in the comments below. You can also message them to me on Instagram and I'll compile them and do another Q&A video like this. You can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at The Wizard Taylor. You can follow Hayley on Instagram and TikTok at Hobbit Party. Thank you so much for watching this video. We'll see you next time. Keep making cool things. Bye.